The Department of Sociology of the Financial University under the government of the Russian Federation has compiled a rating of Russian cities in terms of poverty. The study was conducted in 2014 in 35 cities with a population of more than 500,000. In the course of it, the Russians themselves were offered to assess their well-being on a 5-point scale, where 1 meant that there was hardly enough money for food, and 5, finances allowed them to buy even real estate. Based on the data obtained, sociologists calculated the poverty index. As a result, Chelyabinsk was recognized as the most problematic Russian city. There is not only the highest poverty index, but also the highest proportion of poor young men, which, according to sociologists, is fraught with social unrest. The least problematic cities are Moscow, Vladivostok, Yekaterinburg, Kazan, Tyumen, where the poverty index is less than 0.25, for comparison, in Chelyabinsk, 0.8. In general, however, despite repeated crises, the situation in the country has improved in comparison with the beginning of the 2000s. In 2003, the share of the critically poor population, which hardly has enough money for food, according to the study, was 37%. Low income, funds are only enough for food and basic necessities -76%. In December 2014 to 10% and 54%, respectively. The most prosperous year in social terms for the country turned out to be 2013, the poor -10%, the low income -46%. And one of the local peaks of poverty occurred at the end of 2011, when the share of those who barely have enough to eat reached 16 to 18%. It was then, as the researchers note, that the swamp movement arose, which came to naught by the middle of 2012, when the share of the very poor fell to 9 to 11%. Russia is a country with the richest natural resources, which occupy more than 20% of all world reserves of gas, oil, drinking water, forests, etc. At the same time, the state does not yet provide equally good living conditions for people in different cities. Well-being is determined by several factors, such as availability of medicine and its level, road condition and travel safety, the desire to stay in one place, the level of housing and communal services, the opportunity to get a quality education, interest in leisure, corruption of the authorities. The top contains the poorest cities in Russia. The rating was compiled according to a federal sociological survey conducted in 2019 by the independent agency Zoom Market. The financial situation of citizens was assessed in 24 cities. The capital of Mordovia, Saransk, topped the list of the poorest cities in Russia. This situation is explained simply: the republic has long been among the malicious debtors. This is due to the violation of the terms of budget lending. The difference between debt and own income in Mordovia is the biggest. This situation in the republic also affects the welfare of the capital. The industry in Saransk is in decline due to the wear and tear of equipment at enterprises, which makes them uncompetitive, and lack of investment due to bureaucratic barriers. The stadium built for the 2018 FIFA World Cup requires 300 million rubles of investments annually. The income from the matches currently does not pay for the maintenance of the Mordovia arena. Tambov is the administrative center of the region of the same name. It is known for its developed chemical industry and mechanical engineering. The city's enterprises produce steel, aluminum, bimetal, household chemicals are sold in Russia and abroad. A large selection of communication equipment and building materials are sold in the shops of the city. At the same time, the economy is not developing so intensively. Many factories that operated under the Soviet Union have now ceased their activities. Shopping centers have opened on their territory. Working specialties are not popular with young people, although it is possible to earn decent money in this area. The labor market is limited to retail outlets. The average salary is 10 to 12,000 rubles, hence the low purchasing power of citizens. It is believed that you can get a high-paying job only with the help of personal connections. Today Saratov is the industrial and cultural center of the Volga region. Only after 1990 the city was open to foreigners. Until that time, it was a closed place, as many enterprises serving the military and space industries worked there. The mid-90s became a disastrous time for many factories. The lamp, machine tool, oil factory closed. Already in the early 2000s, the aviation enterprise finally stopped, the unique equipment was sold, and high-rise buildings and shopping centers grew on its territory. The workers were retrained into sellers. Half of the products previously produced in Saratov are now imported from outside. shortage of labor personnel, increased competition between regions, unprofitability of agriculture, weak modernization of enterprises, departure of the able-bodied population, increased pressure on the city budget due to the large number of pensioners. These factors led to the third place of the city in the list. Belgrade is an administrative, scientific, and cultural center of the region of the same name. The land is rich in ore, chalk, chernozem, fresh springs. Large enterprises produce construction materials, products, and the metalworking industry generates income. Belgrade currently belongs to the actively developing cities. The hindering factor is the complexity in the balance between agriculture and the extractive industry. Both require large territories for their needs. The region is experiencing an energy hunger. Another negative factor is the unsettled economic relations with the nearest neighbor, Ukraine. The disadvantage of life in Belgrade can be called the transport infrastructure. Buses, trolleybuses and minibuses do not run according to schedule. It is problematic to get to the right place after 9 p.m. The routes do not keep up with the construction of new houses. It is difficult to find a high-paying job without connections. There are few large enterprises with high wages. Perm is the third largest city in Russia, after Moscow and St. Petersburg. The main branches of the economy are mechanical engineering, oil and gas processing, food industry, wood processing, etc. Perm was a city with 1 million residents until the early 2000s. Such a large number of the population turned out artificially due to the evacuation of industrial enterprises to the territory of the administrative center during the war and by annexing neighboring villages. Now there is a high migration from the city to Moscow, St. Petersburg, Yekaterinburg and abroad. The outflow of people also occurs for natural reasons. Mortality exceeds the birth rate, that is, depopulation of the population is observed. The heterogeneity of society has given rise to a high degree of stratification of social groups. Perm ranks top in the ranking of cities with a high crime rate. Insufficient provision of housing for employees and a low level of improvement also do not contribute to the desire to stay in the city for a long time. The city of Ivanovo is the regional center of the Ivanovo region. Previously, the textile industry was developed here, which provided jobs and profit to the budget. Now the weaving industry is going through hard times. The Ivanhoe sewing factory and the Shuisky cotton mill remained afloat. Ivanovo region is a region supported by subsidies from the central budget. Textile giants, which previously sold their products throughout the Soviet Union, now do not exist. Shopping centers, shops, offices, warehouses, etc. are located on their territories. Small sewing workshops are engaged in sewing products, textile companies are engaged in selling. The figures of GRP, gross regional product, are significantly less than in the Moscow region. The same applies to the level of income of people. The population, as throughout Russia, has significantly decreased in the post-Soviet period. This is due to the low birth rate. The number of pensioners is 30% of the total figure. Wages are 40% lower than in the whole country. There is a decrease in the number of qualified doctors and middle-level workers in the field of medical care. Bryansk today is a large industrial and cultural center with approximately 500,000 inhabitants. Large factories continue to operate here: machine building, steel, arsenal plant, worsted mill, food production plants, construction companies. More than a third of residents are employed in trade and services. The acute problem that needs to be solved remains the condition of roads. -24% of citizens think so. 15% are dissatisfied with the work of the housing sector. The number of people employed in the military industry and medicine is decreasing. Young people do not want to work on construction sites, transport and communication enterprises. People of pre-retirement age are in no hurry to go on vacation, as they fear that their financial situation will deteriorate dramatically. The percentage of the able-bodied population is decreasing, and the number of pensioners is growing. Wages in construction are growing at the fastest pace. In other industries, the difference between salary and pension is very significant. These factors do not allow the city to rise to a higher level in terms of the welfare of citizens. Rostov-on is the administrative center of the Rostov region. The port of the Five Seas is called this city, because from it, through the Volga-Don shipping channel, water transport enters the Azov, White, Caspian, Black, and Baltic Seas. Large factories provide jobs to residents and make a significant contribution to the city budget. The average salary is 24,000 rubles. The economy of Rostov-on has slowed down noticeably recently. Large factories have stopped investing in the development of production. The share of unprofitable enterprises has increased to almost 36%. The crisis also affected the profile industry, agriculture. Prices for household goods rose by 2%, and for food, by 3%. One of the key factors influencing the deterioration of the economic forecast is climate change. It is especially alarming for agriculture, the basic industry for Rostov-on. An unusual shallowing of the Don was recorded in November 2019. The Hydrometeorological Center determined that the cause of this phenomenon was a strong east wind. The difficult navigation also affected the economic situation of the region. Voronezh is the administrative center of the region of the same name. The city is known primarily for industrial production. It produces unique parts for foreign aircraft. Voronezh Synteskoshuk is the only plant producing thermoplastic elastomers. A lot of outlets are waiting for customers. The highest salaries for managers, up to 90,000 rubles, the smallest, for ordinary bank employees, from 6,000 rubles. The majority of citizens find work through dating or with the help of agencies. The most sought-after specialists are doctors of various profiles, from a therapist to a surgeon. Industry cannot boast of high labor productivity. The reason is the depreciation of fixed assets. Because of this, products are uncompetitive in Russia and abroad. Another factor of the low indicator in the economy is the low percentage of working people with higher and secondary vocational education. The region needs a constant infusion of funds from the federal center. The authorities are trying to reduce the share of external investments in the Voronezh budget. The level of services of the housing and communal sector constantly causes complaints from residents of the city. The tourism sector is poorly developed. There is no decent infrastructure and service. Chelyabinsk is the capital of the Chelyabinsk region, an urban district. This is an industrial city, which means that the basis of the local budget is deductions from factories and factories. The problem of labor personnel in Chelyabinsk is acute, as in other cities of Russia. Factories offer high salaries, a full insurance package, benefits, but young people do not want to join the machine. They prefer to stand on the labor exchange in search of an office job. Farmers in the region are experiencing a lack of funding. Investment is weak. There is a paradox: production volumes are growing, but there is no tangible profit. There are a lot of questions about the construction of roads, the improvement of the city. Experts explain this situation by the fact that in the early 90s most of the fundamental enterprises were killed. The industrial industry has never been able to fully recover after that time. There is a massive outflow of population. People are looking for places with great opportunities for personal growth.